Hope that we don't have any difficulties now. I wanted to introduce very briefly my new course on Goethe's Faust Part 2. And so I'm going to go over a few things that matter in this regard, and would like to invite you to join the course, which will begin in exactly a month, maybe mid-April, but very likely on the weekend of Easter, as is appropriate. Ostara, an old pagan festival and holy day, which then was, of course, incorporated and adapted to fit to the Christian takeover of Europe. And we're already in the middle of the theme, which is that Goethe's Faust is decidedly post-Christian, not anti-Christian, but post-Christian. So it's not a story arc of redemption or Christian salvation, but it's the attempt of Faustian man to free himself from Christianity. And so the difference to the Catholic reactionary Spengler, who misreads Goethe and Goethe's Faust, we won't read this as the Faustian soul coming to an end, but rather beginning. And Goethe's Faust Part 2, that's the Faust that no one ever reads. If you have questions, by the way, on this course, just let me know in the chat and I'll get back to you. I can now see that we are actually live, so this seems to work now. It didn't work before for some reason. And if you want to hear once we open enrollment, please could you head over to this website and just drop me your email address. And once you've done so, we'll reach out to you very soon with an early enrollment link, probably next week. And we'll probably fill places quickly for this one. So you will have heard of the Faustian Pact, which is largely, I think, informed, especially in the English-speaking world, by Marlowe's Faust. Marlowe, who apparently together with John Dee divined the British Empire on the Isle of Dogs. Now, be that as it may, the Faustian Pact in Goethe is quite different from Marlowe's. It's no longer really a Christian narrative. The devil, to a certain extent, Mephistopheles, not really the devil, but the spirit that negates, as he refers to himself, is less the driving force than Faust himself. So Faustian man seeks something, doesn't believe in the soul anymore, so it's almost pointless to wager the soul. And I think rather the point is, and also this is something we'll discuss. So we won't discuss in the course Faust Part 1. We did this last year. If you missed out on that, that doesn't matter. You can just read Faust Part 1 on your own or take the Faust course now and go through it. And what I'll do in the first lecture is I'll go over some of the most important aspects. We'll read again the prologue in heaven, the bet between God and Mephistopheles, which is an ingenious, not reconstruction, but really transformation of, is it the Book of Job, where it turns out that what we refer to as God really is the devil. I mean, what a devilish God would do that to that poor schmuck. It must be the devil. So that's how Goethe reappropriates this this myth from this collection of texts that for some reason is referred to as the Bible, as if that were the only place where the divine ever shone through. And we shall see that in Faust Part 2, we actually arrive at something quite different, something much more significant, which is the myth of how we became modern, the making of modernity, if you like. That is what we're going to be focusing on. We want to understand that trajectory that is modernity in light of Goethe's Faust. So we're going, and this is really something that begins to shine through in the second Faust. The first Faust is preparation for that, at most. And the second Faust is where it's at. You'll see that Faust, together with Mephistopheles, perhaps inspired, very, very certainly inspired by the Bank of England and whoever runs the Bank of England, they invent paper money or introduce paper money. So that's something we're going to discuss, the specific economics that underpin the modern age. And we're going to, of course, consider also the production of the homunculus in Goethe's Faust. That's something else that we want to address as well. The homunculus, who's produced by Wagner. And we're going to look at Faust's marriage with Helena and the relationship that they have, the attempt to reconnect one way or the other with antiquity, and why that apparently, and I say apparently, fails, but also that the attempt itself is what matters. So it's not as though we're completely cut off from it, but the question is how we address and are with our ancestors from antiquity. So, if you come to this from Spengler, you'll see that I have a bit of a very different understanding of what Faustian means than what Spengler has in mind. Especially the very misguided assumption by Spengler that misguiding really in an active sense, it misleads us, leads us astray. The claim that the battles between the gods are now different ones than they were thousands of years ago. They're not. They're the same battles, same gods, different names, perhaps. And Goethe is aware of this and sees hence a deep connection, let's say, between the days of old, the days of yore, and what is to come. We want to consider also Faust's end, at least as far as this as the second part of the tragedy goes, his profession as a developer, we could say, perhaps, or an organizer, someone who plans the world, tries to steer the world, and also has, in some way or other, Philemon and Baucis killed, and of course we have to consider also his ascension to heaven, and whether that is, if you think that this is Christian redemption, good, be my guest. Do you argue for that? I don't think so, but we'll see. Because the way which we're going to do this is there will be 10. So there's 5 acts. There will be 10 lectures, 2 lectures per act, and that gives us plenty of time to read this text together I will lecture for the first half hour, 45 minutes of the weekly meeting, which will be about 2 hours long each week, each probably Saturday evenings if you're in Europe. And so probably 6 to 8 p.m. Central European time. And after the initial lecture, I'd like to hear from you your thoughts on the reading for that week, because there will be so many different references to and images that Goethe uses that I certainly won't be able to pick up on all of them. So the group will be probably somewhere between 20 to 30 people. That's usually how many people sign up for this, and then also many people continue to show up. And I'd like to really encourage you then also to not only read the text, but also to start writing on the text and start taking it, I think, seriously as really a myth of modernity, a myth of the modern world that tells us who we are and how we became who we are, which shall be the focus of this course. So, as I mentioned before, if you have questions, let me know in the chat and I'll get to them either immediately or later on. But let me just reiterate that if you could be so kind to register your interest here. So the way this works, I'll just show you. It's quite straightforward, actually. So you head over to this website. Yeah. You head over here, and then all you do is first name and email address, and then you register. It's not course registration. In this way, I can reach out to you once we open enrollment, which I think we'll probably do later next week. Those of you who did the Goethe Faust course last year will probably hear from me first. So I want to give you a chance to enroll in this one too. So we agreed last year that we simply have to go on and do Faust 2 this year, which is what we're going to do. And I hope that many of you will be able to join us. I think we already have about 50 people on the list. So let's see. Yeah, about 50. Good. All right. So let me perhaps reiterate how I approach the at least the first couple of lectures. I'll briefly summarize Faust Part 1, but only the most important parts, and I think we'll begin with the very ending of or not so much the very ending, but the Walpurgis Night in Faust 1, which is where we're already confronted with the manifold voices of modernity. And we're then going to go over the prologue in Heaven again, which is crucial for the entirety of Goethe's Faust, which will then be continued, with. So I'll briefly mention and summarize again how I understand Goethe's Faust's pact with Mephistopheles. We need to understand what exactly he means. What exactly he means by the pact and by his proclamation that he, as soon as he says, "Augenblick verweile doch, du bist so schön," a moment linger on, thou art so fine. That's when Mephistopheles shall take him. So this is usually read as the sorry restlessness of the Faustian soul, etc. To some extent, not unfair reading, but doesn't quite cut it. To put it very simply, Faust has certain things to do, and he requires the spirit of negation to get to that. That is not the thing in itself that has already caused the past, but it is, I'll say it again, the liberation, the proclamation, not proclamation, the liberation or emancipation, let's say, from Christianity. That is what the text is really about. That is how we become properly modern. And so we're going to read this against, of course, the backdrop, let's say, of the Enlightenment also, of which, broadly speaking, Goethe was critical, etc. So these are some of the things we're going to address. And the way that the lectures will then progress is not summaries of the different scenes, but the philosophically significant themes and topics in light of the entirety of Goethe's Faust. That's what we want to address. So we want to understand, for example, how Mephistopheles as the spirit of negation, spirit that negates, is involved in double bookkeeping, if you like, and the fiat money system. Fiat means let it be, so may it be, or it shall be. Money printed out of thin air, produced out of thin air, out of nothing, more or less. And so that is, for example, an important focus of the second lecture, given that this happens in the second part of the first act. And of course, also we want to understand how and why it all the homunculus comes in and is important, but also what, if any, relationship with the past, with antiquity, which Goethe so admires, is possible, so that we don't just become epigonal imitators of something purely superficial or external, but in fact are able to internalize and, to use a Goethean term, Anverwandlung, to appropriate and make our own that which is of antiquity and play it forward. That is how we should, I think, understand the marriage between Helena, or Helen, and Faust. Even though, of course, it ends in tragedy, but that's, only a cowardly pessimist would read that as being, meaning there's anything's futile. There's nothing futile about it. So, and again, there's an extended cross-epochal or inter-epochal battle that rages, and of which Goethe is aware. And so we could read this text also as as Dante's comedy, as a significant moment in the spiritual battle for the meaning of or the direction of the European spirit. That's, I think, what Goethe's Faust is also. And so Faust is himself an old man at once, as also a very young man. We shouldn't forget that Faust begins an old man, an old scholastic, in his Gothic chambers, tucked away from the light of life. and returns by the help of witchcraft. A young man. Now, this, of course, is a metaphor for the Faustian soul's not only rejuvenation, but actually initiation. It's not so much already an old, spent soul as a reactionary might read this, but it's quite the opposite. It's by casting away. What is the Gothic era? The Gothic era is this attempt to strive towards the celestial, but through the heavy weight of Christianity. And so, overcoming that rejuvenates or actually births the Faustian soul. So Faust begins here and isn't already old. And there's always the need for the Untergang, going under, going down. No ascension without descension first. So this is what we're going to discuss in the first few lectures. And so there will be some time spent on Faust 1, but just so that we refresh our minds what Faust 1 really is about. And then we play it forth into the second part, where again, I think we have probably the foundational myth on how we've become modern, and especially in light of, let's say, certain eschatological appropriations of Goethe's Faust by, for example, Dugin and others, misappropriations as such, or by Spengler, or by accelerationism, more broadly speaking. I mean, the accelerationism of Nick Land, for example, that all are ultimately either eschatological or entropic. And I think there's something else that's going on. It's almost like a necessary catharsis that occurs in Faust 2, which again ultimately all serves to liberate the European soul from the yoke of Christianity. Insofar as, with Dugin very explicitly, it's just neo-Christianity hushed up, and with others, of the accelerationists, stripe who are transhumanists, that also is just neo-Christianity. I mean, it's not Christ the first transhuman in a sense. So that, I think, gives you a good idea of what the course will be about. So I'd like to point out again, please, to head over. If you have a question, let me know now. I'll be gone in a few minutes. If you want to secure a place, register your interest now. And I'll reach out to you probably next week. If you took the class last year, I'll reach out to you earlier because I want to make sure that you actually get a space. The spots will be limited, and so we do want to make sure. I do want to make sure that you've got a chance to enroll, because every year, once it's too late, we get emails. So register your interest. All I need from you is an email address that actually works. And once we have that, I can reach out to you in due time and let you know about how to enroll, etc. And just know the formality. So there'll be 10 lectures, 2 hours, so 10 lectures plus seminars, lectures and seminars in one. I'll lecture for about half an hour. The main focus is that we read the text together. So we'll be sitting here. I've got the German version. I have a couple of translations. I'll recommend one translation. You can use another translation. That's perfectly fine. If you're French, you should read perhaps French. If you're English speaking, you should read English, etc. So we can have an orchestra of translations, let's say, and I'll try and conduct us through this text. There will be many things that you'll be able to pick up on. Um, that maybe you know about the many different references that Goethe has in there, and I certainly won't be able to pick up on all of them. But that will be, of course, also one of the focuses to try and see why he brings certain um, aspects in. And I think perhaps one of the most important uh, line that we should remember even right now is the following: Am farbigen Abglanz haben wir das Leben. That is how Faust begins. And so, we could say Abglanz is something like reflection. So it's the colorful reflection where we find life. So not in immediacy, not in anything that's immediately given, etc., but in Abglanz, reflection, or mirroring even. And it must be colorful. That's to say, it's not some shallow, uh, uh, not husk-like. So there is something there, but there's no immediate access to, let's say, essence or nature or constitutive traits, but it's through reflection. And the mirror is crucial in Goethe's Faust, as you know when you've read at least a few parts of it. And so we do want to address that. So this is how you can imagine one of the lectures be like. So we'll look at this is what Faust says right in the beginning. And of course, also Faust wakes up at the beginning of Faust 2, baffling to centuries of commentators now. Faust wakes up entirely oblivious, drinking from or bathing in Lethe, the river Lethe, the river of forgetting. Entirely. Does that mean that his love affair with Gretchen, the loss of his child, all of this now no longer matters? Or perhaps this forgetting is part of Faust coming into his own. So we're going to focus on this and on the colorful reflection where we find life. That's what we want to understand right in the beginning of the first lecture. And then on we go. And it's always going to be in light of the entirety of the text. So I'd like to invite you to read this very important foundational myth, I think, of modernity, of how we became modern, with me this year, beginning the weekend of Ostara, of rebirth, of rejuvenation, which then the Christian sect appropriated quite ingeniously, I have to say. They're very good at this. It's infinitely malleable, Christianity. You can take it anywhere, really, can't you? Striking. And so that we might be reborn ourselves. And do make sure that, so thanks to everyone, I see more people registering their interest. When you do, give me an email address that actually works. Because if you don't, then I have no way of reaching out to you. So again, head over to this website now, Halcyon Guild, my website, of our guild, of our academy, and give me your name and your email. I think you have to agree and then register. And I'll reach out to you next week. Thank you for listening. Make sure to share this with anyone who's interested in Goethe's Faust or Goethe's work, more broadly speaking. This will be something else I'm going to consider, of course, as well as I'm going to consider Goethe's, let's say, philosophy, more broadly speaking. You'll find, I think at this point, actually several videos here on this channel on Goethe. So If you're interested to hear more about this, just look for those, Niederhauser Goethe. In the meantime, I look forward to emailing you very soon and to welcoming you, I should say, um, in about a month from now at the course. Thank you. Good night.